Daniel put his hand against the front door before I could step inside. "Mara, don't do this here." Through the glass behind him, his mother was positioning herself beneath the brass chandelier I had spent 6 weeks hunting down. Lenora looked past Daniel and called to the photographer. "She's no longer family. We need the founders together." Owen lowered his camera. I watched Daniel decide not to correct her. For the next 40 minutes, they arranged every photograph without me. Daniel behind the walnut desk, Lenora cutting the ribbon, mother and son beneath the new Glasshouse Inn sign, smiling as if they had built the place by holding still. I waited until Lenora asked Owen to shoot them coming through the doorway together. Then I said, "Who booked you?" Owen glanced at me, opened the contract on his tablet, and checked one detail. His expression changed. "You did," he said. "This is your contract." The old brass key to room 7 pressed into my palm. Daniel stared at it, then at me. He knew exactly why I had brought it. 5 months earlier, that key had hung on the hook beside our kitchen pantry. Because I was tired of driving 20 minutes to the inn, only to discover that Daniel had left his ring of keys in his truck, which was parked somewhere else. It was a heavy brass thing with a crooked tooth and a stamped wooden tag that read 7. We'd found it beneath 3 layers of contact paper in the old manager's office. It no longer opened room 7. The locks had been changed before we bought the property. But Daniel liked the look of it. "For emergencies," he'd said, hanging it in our kitchen. "It doesn't open anything." "It opens the possibility of conversation. That sentence is why contractors overcharge you." He'd kissed the side of my head. "They overcharge me because I have an honest face." "You have a face that says you don't know what grout costs." "I don't know what grout costs." "I know." Back then, that exchange still felt like our marriage in miniature. Daniel brought optimism, charm, and an almost supernatural ability to get angry men in work boots to give us another week. I brought spreadsheets, backup plans, and the dark knowledge of what grout cost. We had bought the Glasshouse Inn after spending a rainy weekend there for our anniversary. The property had 12 rooms, a dining room with crooked floors, and a greenhouse-style sunroom overlooking an overgrown ravine. Its previous owner had been ready to retire. Daniel saw a destination hotel. I saw 27 separate code violations and a roof that would eat our savings alive. Then I saw the morning light come through the old glass panels and scatter across the dining room tables. "We could fix this," I'd said. Daniel grinned. "I was waiting for you to say it first." We used our savings for the down payment and formed Glasshouse Hospitality with both our names on it. My consulting business had steadier income, so I kept my clients while handling the inn's budgets, vendors, menus, reservation system, and launch plan. Daniel left his sales job to supervise the renovation full-time. His mother began helping 3 weeks later. Lenora Vale did not enter a room so much as improve its posture. She was 63, silver-haired, always pressed and polished, with the brisk hands of someone who could reset a dining table while firing a waiter. She had managed restaurants for most of Daniel's life. She understood inventory, staffing, linen service, and exactly how long a person could stand at a host station before feeling ignored. At first, I was relieved to have her. The first day she volunteered, she found a produce supplier who beat our quoted price by 11%. The second day, she reorganized the temporary supply room so the staff could find batteries without opening 7 boxes labeled MISC. On the third day, she replaced my coffee. I found a silver pod machine in the office where my battered drip brewer had been. What happened to the coffee maker? Lenora looked up from a clipboard. It was leaking. It drips when you pull the pod out. Yes, leaking. Where is it? I took it home. Daniel said you like strong coffee, and this has an espresso setting. Daniel wandered in carrying a roll of electrical wire. You'll love it once you figure it out. I had figured out the other one. Lenora smiled. This looks more professional. It was a coffee maker. I told myself that because the alternative was acknowledging how quickly a person could turn an appliance into a border dispute. I thanked her. For a while, Lenora's intrusions were easy to dismiss because they arrived wrapped around things we genuinely needed. She brought sandwiches during inspections. She found us 6 matching armchairs through a restaurant auction. She spent an entire Friday comparing laundry services and negotiated free pickup for the first year. She also changed the color of the dining room curtains after I approved the fabric, gave a spare key to her friend Paulette in case we need flowers in a hurry, and added herself as an administrator on the inn's social media account. When I removed Paulette's key from the lockbox, Lenora acted confused. She's been arranging flowers for 30 years. Then she'll understand appointments. What if there's an emergency? A flower emergency? Daniel snorted before he could stop himself. Lenora turned to him. You think it's funny now? Wait until a bride arrives and the centerpieces are dead. We aren't booking weddings yet, I said, because nobody has shown you how. In the truck afterward, Daniel rested both hands on the steering wheel without starting the engine. You embarrassed her. She gave a key to someone I barely know. Paulette isn't a stranger. She is to me. She did the flowers at our wedding. That doesn't make her emergency personnel. His mouth twitched. I thought he was going to laugh, and for 1 second I almost did too. Then he sighed. Mom is trying to feel useful. She is useful. She's also crossing lines. You could say that without making her feel stupid. I looked out at the blue tarp flapping over the porch roof. Did she tell you I made her feel stupid? No, I could see it. That was Daniel's great talent with his mother. He could see injuries she had not named and miss mine while I was speaking. Still, he took the key back from Paulette. 2 days later, he brought me a paper cup of coffee from my favorite place and set it beside my laptop. Peace offering. From you or your mother. Does it matter? Yes. He considered that, then pulled a second cup from behind his back. This one is from me. The other one is from a woman who did not authorize an apology. I laughed. He crouched beside my chair and put his chin on my knee. I'll talk to her, he said. That was the first time. By the 7th, I'll talk to her meant the same thing as, let's stop talking about it. The anniversary dinner happened in October, 3 weeks before our first scheduled soft opening. I arrived at the inn that afternoon with payroll envelopes, fabric samples, and a headache that had settled behind my left eye. There were 12 unfamiliar cars in the gravel lot. Inside, the dining room glowed with candles. Our new cream linens covered the tables. Bottles from the inn's unopened wine inventory sat breathing on the sideboard. A banner reading 40 years of love hung across the fireplace. Lenora came through the kitchen doors carrying a tray of polished glasses. You're early. For what? She stopped. Daniel didn't tell you? That sentence should be printed on family crests. Daniel appeared behind her, wearing the blue shirt I'd bought him for press photos. Hey, I was going to call. Apparently, you were going to call before I arrived at my own business and discovered a banquet. Lenora set down the tray. It's our anniversary, just family and a few close friends. I counted 6 tables. How many? 24. Our occupancy permit for events hasn't cleared. We're not charging anyone, Daniel said. The fire marshal doesn't accept sentiment as a form of payment. He lowered his voice. Can we not do this in front of people? There it was again. The emergency was never what they had done. The emergency was my reaction becoming visible. I walked into the kitchen. Every prep surface was covered. The chef we'd hired for menu testing stood over a stock pot with his mouth pulled tight. Did you approve this? I asked him. He looked toward the doors. Daniel said it was cleared. I turned to Daniel. You told Luis I approved it? I said we approved it? That's not what I asked. Lenora entered behind us. If there's an issue with the permit, we'll keep everyone in the dining room. I've managed hundreds of private events. Not here. The kitchen went quiet except for the stock pot lid trembling softly. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Mara, please. I could have shut it down. I knew that. I could have told everyone to leave, pulled the linens, locked the wine, and made Daniel explain why his mother's anniversary dinner ended in the parking lot. Instead, I looked at Luis. Keep the exit path clear. No candles in the sunroom. Write down everything that comes out of inventory. Lenora's shoulders relaxed as if I had finally chosen to be reasonable. And tomorrow, I added, I want payment for the food, wine, staff time, and cleaning. Her face changed. Daniel followed me into the office. Payment? Yes. It's a gift. From whom? Us. You don't get to give away my labor and call it us. He closed the door. Through the wall came a burst of laughter. It's one dinner. It's never one thing. It's curtains and keys and accounts and purchases. And every time I object, you make me negotiate against two people who already agreed. She's my mother. I'm your wife. You think those are competing positions? They shouldn't be. For a moment, he had nothing. Then someone knocked, and Lenora's voice came through the door. Daniel, your uncle is asking about the wine. He looked at me with apology already arranged on his face. Go, I said. Mara, your uncle needs you. I stayed in the office until the toast began. Then I went looking for the 3 glass decanters that usually sat on the dining room mantel. They had belonged to my father, who believed cheap bourbon tasted better if you gave it a dignified home. After he died, I kept the decanters boxed for years. The inn was the first place large enough to display them without turning them into a shrine. The mantel was empty. I found 2 decanters on a metal shelf in the laundry room. The third was in a cardboard box on the floor, split from neck to shoulder. Lenora appeared in the doorway. I was going to tell you. I crouched and lifted the broken stopper. What happened? One of the servers must have bumped the box. Why were they in a box? They looked gloomy with the anniversary decorations. Gloomy. The dark glass. All those heavy lines. I wanted the room to feel lighter. You moved my property because it didn't match your party. I was improving the room. You broke it. I did not break anything. Her voice hardened. And I don't appreciate being spoken to as though I'm some careless employee. You're right. An employee would have asked permission. Daniel reached the doorway in time to hear that. Lenora looked at him, wounded and furious. I have done nothing but help you too. Mom, he said, I have given months of my life to this place. I have called in favors. I have saved you thousands of dollars. And she is attacking me over a piece of glass. Daniel looked down at the broken decanter. He knew what it was. He had packed those decanters when we moved. He had listened to my father tell the same bourbon story until we could both perform it from memory. He had once driven back through a snowstorm because I thought we'd left the box in a rental cabin. I waited for him to say my name. Instead, he said, "We'll replace it." Lenora exhaled sharply. "Thank you." "You can't," I said. Daniel's eyes flicked toward the dining room, toward the guests who might hear us. "Then we'll find something similar." "That isn't the point." "It was an accident, Mara. His mother had moved it. His mother had hidden it. His mother had stood over the pieces and defended herself. But Daniel was the one who broke something. I carried the box to my car. On the way out, I passed the pantry and saw the room 7 hook hanging empty. "Where's the brass key?" I asked. Daniel glanced at the blank hook. Lenora answered from behind him. "I have it." "For what?" I asked. Lenora folded her arms. "I needed to get into the linen closet yesterday, and Daniel was on the roof. The room 7 key doesn't open the linen closet. I know that now." "Where is it?" "In my purse. Get it." She stared at me as if I'd asked her to empty her pockets for the police. Daniel stepped closer. "Let's do this tomorrow." "No. I want the key. There are 24 people in the next room. I didn't invite them." Lenora's mouth flattened. She walked into the dining room, smiling before she crossed the threshold. I watched her greet someone, touch an elbow, laugh at a remark I couldn't hear. She took her time reaching the chair where she had left her purse. Daniel stood beside me with his hands in his pockets. "You're making tonight about you," he said. I turned so quickly he took half a step back. "That's what you think I'm doing? I think Mom planned one dinner and you're treating it like a hostile takeover. She removed my things. She used our staff and inventory. She told Luis I approved it." I told Luis. "That makes it better?" "No, it means you should be mad at me." "I am mad at you." He looked almost surprised. Lenora returned with the brass key pinched between two fingers. She held it out by the wooden tag, careful not to touch my hand. "There," she said. "Crisis resolved." I slipped the key into my coat pocket. The dinner cost $1,842.73. I knew because Luis kept every receipt, recorded each bottle opened, and added his staff's hours without being asked. On Monday morning, he placed the total on my desk with a cup of coffee from the silver pod machine. "I included the flowers," he said. "I thought Paulette was doing them as a favor." She was. Then Mrs. Vale requested orchids. Of course she did. Luis stood with his arms crossed over his chef's coat. He was a broad man who treated small inefficiencies as personal insults. Before the dinner, I'd assumed he liked Lenora. He respected competence, and she knew how to run a room. "She changed the soup," he said. I looked up. "What?" "She said the squash bisque was too ordinary. She brought lobster stock. Half the menu was vegetarian." "Yes. What did you do?" "Serve the squash." That explained why Lenora had spent the first course telling everyone that an opening kitchen needed time to find its identity. I slid the invoice into a folder. "Thank you for documenting everything. Are we getting paid?" "Yes." "Good. Because if this is how private events work, I'm going back to hotel banquets. At least there, when somebody ruins your night, they have the decency to wear a name tag." I laughed harder than the joke deserved. Daniel came in as Luis left. He closed the door and put a check on my desk, his personal check. $800. "What's this?" "Half." "Half of what?" "The dinner." I pushed the invoice toward him. He winced at the total. "That much?" "Wine is expensive when you open bottles you didn't buy." "I'll cover the rest next month." "Your mother should cover it." It was my idea to have it here. That was a lie, but it was an interesting one. Daniel lied rarely and badly. His left thumb rubbed the edge of his wedding band. "Did she ask you to say that?" "No." "Did she offer to pay anything?" "She offered to help us with the dining chairs. We already ordered dining chairs. She thinks the ones we picked look cheap." I leaned back. "There it is." "What?" "The exchange rate. She takes $1,800 from the business, offers us something we don't need, and gets to feel generous. She doesn't see it that way. You keep saying that as if her view is the only one with legal tender." He dragged the guest chair closer and sat. Dust covered the knees of his jeans. There was a fresh scrape along his wrist, and for a second I wanted to clean it. Marriage can make tenderness feel like a reflex you resent your own body for keeping. "She's lonely," he said. "Since Dad died, she hasn't had anywhere to put all this energy. So we give her our business? We give her something to be part of. I'm not asking you to throw her out. I'm asking you to stop giving her authority she doesn't have. She knows more about this industry than either of us. Then she can advise us. You don't take her advice." I took her produce supplier, linen service, seating plan, front desk schedule, and half her wine list. You fight her on everything. I fight her on the things she does without asking. Daniel looked at the broken decanter box beside the filing cabinet. I had taped it shut, but I hadn't managed to take it home. "I'm sorry about your dad's thing," he said. "Decanter. I know. No, you knew Saturday. That's why you called it a piece of glass. I was trying to calm everybody down. You calmed her down." He stared at the floor. I waited because I still believed silence could make room for honesty. Sometimes it only makes room for escape. "I've got the gutter crew waiting," he said at last. He left the check. I deposited it into the inn's account and recorded the rest as an amount owed by Daniel. It was the kind of choice I had started making without telling him, not to punish him, but because I no longer trusted our conversations to remain true after he left the room. 2 days later, Lenora sent me a text. "I'm sorry your feelings were hurt during our celebration. I hope someday you understand that including family in the Glasshouse is how we make it a place people will love." I read it twice, then forwarded the dinner invoice. She responded with a thumbs up. The following week, a delivery truck arrived with 48 sets of ivory sheets. I was in the sunroom measuring table spacing when the driver asked where I wanted the luxury linens. The invoice listed Lenora's email address and the inn's billing account. "We didn't order these," I said. He checked his paperwork. Special order. No returns. The sheets were high thread count Egyptian cotton, beautiful and completely wrong for an inn where we needed durable linens that could survive commercial washing and the occasional guest with hair dye. I called the supplier from the loading porch. Lenora had used our pending account number, but the order had not entered production. The driver had picked up sample cartons for approval, not the full shipment. He was annoyed. The supplier was embarrassed. I was both. I canceled the order, removed the pending account, and asked the driver to take every box back. He had loaded half of them when Lenora's sedan pulled into the lot. "What's happening?" "The sheets are leaving." She looked at the truck. Those were a gift. A gift billed to our account? I negotiated 60-day terms. I was going to pay before the invoice came due. Why wouldn't you pay when you ordered them? Because then the business wouldn't build credit. With an order I didn't approve, they're better than the ones you chose. They're impractical. They're luxurious. They're white. Inns generally use white sheets, Mara. They're ivory. If we replace one damaged piece, it won't match. And the fitted sheets are 18 inches deep. Our mattresses are 12. She blinked. It was a small thing, but I saw it land. I was told they were standard hospitality size. You didn't ask us. I was trying to surprise you. You did. The driver closed the truck's rear door. Lenora turned on Daniel as he came down the porch steps. "Did you know she was canceling this?" He looked from me to the truck. "No." "Because she does not discuss anything. She issues decrees." I pulled my laptop from my bag, opened the shared purchasing policy I'd drafted after the anniversary dinner, and turned it toward them. "I sent this 4 days ago. Every expense over $200 requires approval from both owners." Lenora looked at Daniel. "Both owners." "Yes," I said. "I understand what it means." "Good." Her chin lifted. "Then I assume both owners approved the rugs delivered yesterday." I looked at Daniel. The rugs were his purchase. I knew because we had spent an hour choosing them together. "Yes," I said. "Perhaps you could print your policies. Some of us don't spend the entire day sitting behind a computer." She walked back to her car. Daniel watched her leave. "You enjoyed that." "No." "You did a little." "I enjoyed catching it before it cost us $6,000. She said she was paying. Then why use our account?" "To build business credit." I closed my laptop. "You don't believe that." He rubbed the scrape on his wrist, though it had nearly healed. "You could have let her save face. Why is her face another expense I'm expected to cover?" That afternoon, I changed every vendor password and removed Lenora from the social media account. I told Daniel before I did it. He nodded without looking up from the contractor's estimate. "Fine," he said. "But you handle the vendors then." "I already handle the vendors." He gave a tired laugh. "That's exactly what I mean. For the next 3 weeks, I stopped rescuing decisions I had not made. When Lenora asked the florist to add 2 arrangements to the front desk, I told Paulette there was no purchase order. Paulette called Lenora instead of me after that, which was a relief. When Daniel approved custom brass numbers for the doors without checking the lead time, I did not spend an afternoon calling every metal shop in the state. The temporary ceramic numbers looked perfectly acceptable. When Lenora promised a friend a discounted opening weekend suite, I forwarded the standard booking link and let Lenora explain why her verbal promise did not create a reservation. The inn did not fall apart. It simply stopped pretending that my time was an unlimited natural resource. And people noticed. Luis began bringing menu changes directly to me. Nina, our front desk manager, started copying both owners whenever Lenora gave her instructions. Even Paulette asked for written approval before dropping off a single fern. Daniel noticed too, but not in the way I hoped. "You've got everyone scared to make a decision," he said one night. We were eating takeout noodles at our kitchen island. The brass key hung beside the pantry again. Daniel had returned it to the hook himself, a gesture so small and belated that I didn't know whether to appreciate it. "They're making decisions," I said. "They're documenting them." Nina asked me to email her before she moved a lamp. "Did Mom tell her to move it somewhere else?" He twisted noodles around his fork. "That's not the point." "It might be the entire point. The place feels tense. The place is under construction. It didn't feel like this before. Before meant when I quietly corrected everything after everyone went home." Daniel pushed his carton away. "Mom says you've frozen her out." "I removed access she never should have had. She can't even post photos. She posted unfinished rooms with paint cans in the background. She was building excitement. She was answering booking questions with dates we hadn't approved. So talk to her." "I have talked to her." "No, you give her instructions. There's a difference." I looked at the brass key. Its wooden tag turned slightly whenever the heat came on. "What do you want me to do?" "Trust her." "With what?" He spread his hands. "The inn. That's not an answer. She has 30 years of experience. Then give me one defined area you want her to manage with a budget and a reporting line. She's not applying for a job. Then she doesn't get a job." He stood and carried his carton to the trash. "Everything has to be a contract with you. Contracts are what people write when memory becomes convenient." He flinched. I knew immediately I had struck something older than the inn. Daniel's father had spent the last years of his life making promises he couldn't keep. He would agree to appointments, repairs, family dinners, then insist nobody had told him. After his death, Lenora talked about his forgetfulness as if it had been a moral failure committed specifically against her. "That was low," Daniel said. "It wasn't about your father." "No, it was about mine." He went upstairs. I stayed at the island, staring at the key until its wooden tag stopped moving. The next morning, Daniel left before I woke. He texted that the electrician needed him and added a heart at the end. The same small red heart he used after grocery requests and apologies he did not want to say aloud. At 10, Owen Mercer called me. We had hired him to photograph the finished property, staff portraits, food, and reopening events. I knew his work from a hotel campaign I'd managed for a client. He was talented, calm around difficult people, and expensive enough that I had signed the contract through my consulting company to lock in his rate before the Glasshouse account could support the deposit. "Are we moving the shoot up?" he asked. "What shoot?" There was a pause. "The room staging session tonight." "We don't have a room staging session tonight." "I thought it was strange you weren't copied. Mrs. Vale sent a revised call sheet. I opened my laptop. Nothing." "What time?" 8. She wants dusk exterior shots and room 7 dressed for a romantic package. Room 7 was still missing baseboard trim. More importantly, Lenora did not have access. I pulled up the electronic lock records. Her code had been disabled 3 weeks earlier. At 12:17 the previous night, her name appeared in the log. Room 7. Laundry. Manager's office. I scrolled higher. The account change had been made at 11:52 p.m., authorized by Daniel Vale. The brass key had been hanging in our kitchen while I slept. Daniel had given his mother a new way inside. I canceled the staging session. Then I called Daniel. He answered on the 4th ring over the whine of a saw. "Hey, can I call you back?" "You restored your mother's access." The saw stopped. "Mara, you did it at 11:52 last night. She needed to get in early. She entered at 12:17. She was checking the rooms. She scheduled Owen for tonight." "I know. That hurt more than the access log. You knew. She had some ideas for promotion. I told her she could explore them. After we agreed, she would not have access. We didn't agree. You changed the codes. I told you I was changing them, and you said fine. I was exhausted. That doesn't make the word mean something else. He lowered his voice. I can't do this while the crew is standing here. Then come home. I'm at work. So am I. I ended the call. There was a clean simplicity to the next few things I did. I disabled Lenora's code again. I emailed Nina and Luis that no off-hours entry or vendor booking was authorized without written approval from either Daniel or me, and that instructions from anyone else should be forwarded to both of us. Then I opened the inn's cash flow forecast. The roof overage had eaten through the contingency fund. The boiler deposit was due Friday. Payroll came 5 days after that. My consulting account had enough to cover both because I had left a cushion there for exactly this kind of emergency. For almost 2 years, every time the inn needed money, I had moved it. $5,000 for demolition, $2,300 for insurance, $900 when the contractor discovered rot behind the dining room wall. I documented each transfer, but emotionally, Daniel and I treated them like the same pair of hands, passing a bucket back and forth. I closed the banking window without transferring anything. Daniel arrived home after 9. His boots struck the mudroom floor harder than necessary. You canceled the shoot. Yes. Owen was already holding the date. For the completed property session next month. Not a secret staging session your mother invented. It wasn't secret. She left me off the call sheet because you've made it impossible for her to do anything. I was sitting at the kitchen island with the printed access log beside me. The brass key hung 3 feet away. What do you call restoring her access after I went to sleep? I call it letting someone into a building she spent 6 months helping us finish. She entered the manager's office after midnight to get paint samples. Paint samples are in the supply room. She didn't know that. She reorganized the supply room. His jaw tightened. You hear how you talk about her, right? Yes, specifically. You assume the worst possible motive every time. I don't need to assume motive. I have behavior. She wanted to stage 1 room so we could start selling packages. We aren't ready. We need bookings. We need to pass inspection. We need revenue, Mara. There was fear underneath his anger, real fear. Daniel's gift for optimism had always depended on somebody else checking the distance to the ground. I slid the forecast toward him. We have $21,000 in payables over the next 12 days. He glanced at the figures. I know. The inn account has 9. I know. What's your plan? You transfer the boiler deposit from Vale Hospitality. Vale Hospitality was my consulting business, named before Daniel and I married. He had never objected to the distinction when it was paying bills. No. He blinked. No. The Glasshouse needs to cover its own expenses or borrow transparently. We've always used your account for bridge money. I've always chosen to use it. And now you're choosing not to, 2 weeks before inspection. Yes. He pushed the forecast back at me. That's not setting a boundary. That's holding the business hostage. I am not required to fund decisions I'm excluded from. You own half of it. I also own the money in my business. We're married. That has not been persuasive when I ask you to protect anything that belongs to me. He stared at me. His face changed slowly, anger giving way to comprehension and then back to anger because comprehension was worse. This is about the decanter. It's about you. His shoulders dropped. I had imagined saying those words with force. They came out quietly. If your mother had moved it, broken it, and apologized, we would be talking about glass. If she had never apologized but you had told her she was wrong, we would be talking about your mother. You stood there knowing what it meant, and you made my hurt the embarrassing thing in the room. She was in the middle of her anniversary dinner, at our inn. I know. Do you? He sat across from me. What do you want me to say? I want you to stop asking me to write your lines. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he looked at the forecast again. What happens if we miss the boiler deposit? We lose the installation slot. An inspection moves. Probably. So you're willing to delay opening. I'm willing to stop lying about what opening costs. He gave a short, disbelieving laugh. You've been waiting to do this. No, I've been terrified to do this. That was true enough to make my hands shake under the island. Daniel saw. His anger softened, and for one dangerous second, he looked like the man who had driven through a snowstorm for my father's decanters. He reached across the counter. I almost took his hand. Then he said, "Transfer the money tonight, and I'll keep Mom out until we open." I moved my hands into my lap. He sat back. The boiler deposit went unpaid on Friday. On Monday, the installer gave our slot to a brewery. The building inspector moved us 3 weeks down the calendar. Daniel spent half a day calling favors and found another contractor who wanted 40% more. He did not ask me to cover it again. Lenora stopped coming to the inn, though her absence was anything but quiet. Suppliers mentioned that she had stepped back for family reasons. Paulette told Nina that creative people were often impossible during renovations, by which she meant me, despite my only creative contribution that week being a revised accounts payable schedule. Luis caught me checking the walk-in refrigerator at 7 one morning. "You know it stays cold without supervision," he said. "I've heard rumors." He handed me a container of soup. "Take this home." "What is it?" "Squash bisque. Aggressively ordinary." I smiled. Then he leaned against the prep table. "I need to know if I should keep turning down interviews." The question wiped the smile away. "We're still opening." "That isn't what I asked." I looked through the kitchen pass at the dining room. The cream linens from Lenora's party had come back from the laundry with 2 wine stains that would not lift. I'll have an honest answer by Friday. Daniel found one first. Lenora mortgaged her condo and put $75,000 into the inn as a short-term loan. He told me in our bedroom while I was folding towels. He stayed near the door like he expected me to throw something. "She offered," he said. "Of course she did. We can finish the boiler, cover payroll, and reopen on schedule. Earlier, if she schedules enough midnight photo shoots." "Don't." "What are the terms?" 6%, 18 months. "Security?" "The inn's future revenue." "Did you sign anything?" "Not yet." "Good, send it to our accountant." His shoulders loosened. He had expected a fight. "You're okay with this?" "No, but it's a real loan with written terms, which is what I asked for." She's saving the business. She's buying the position she couldn't take for free. That's unfair. Is it inaccurate? Daniel sat on the edge of the bed. "I don't know how to be married to you anymore." I put down the towel. There are sentences that sound impulsive, but arrive carrying months of luggage. He rubbed both hands over his face. Every conversation is evidence. Every mistake goes in a file. I feel like I'm always one wrong answer from losing everything. I feel like I already gave the wrong answer and didn't know there was a question. What does that mean? I married someone who thinks keeping the peace means making sure I'm the only person allowed to be upset. He looked toward the hall. The brass key was downstairs, but I could feel it between us anyway. "Maybe we should separate," he said. I waited for the instinct to bargain. It didn't come. "All right?" His head lifted. "All right? We should." "You decided that fast." "No, Daniel," I answered fast. For the next month, we moved through rooms as if the furniture had chosen sides. Daniel stayed at the inn more nights than he came home. Lenora returned the morning after he told her about the separation. Her access code worked. I did not disable it again. Instead, I changed what I was willing to provide. I paid only approved obligations from the Glasshouse account. I stopped writing promotional copy at midnight and stopped correcting Lenora's posts after Daniel restored her social media access. When she announced an opening date before the inspector confirmed it, Daniel had to call every reservation himself after the date moved. The refund fees came out of his owner draw. When he promised discounted rooms to Lenora's friends, Nina held the reservations until he supplied a code and a budget. When Lenora ordered brass luggage carts too wide for the front steps, the delivery went back with a restocking charge. Little by little, the inn became heavier in their hands. They still moved it forward. That surprised me. It also hurt. I had spent so long believing the Glasshouse would fail without me that watching Daniel solve problems felt like being erased by proof. He found a cheaper boiler contractor. Lenora convinced the linen service to extend terms. They passed inspection 10 days later than planned, but they passed. Our separation became a divorce petition, then a stack of ordinary documents on a conference table. No hidden accounts appeared. No one discovered a devastating clause. We owned a struggling inn, a house with a mortgage, 2 aging vehicles, and enough resentment to fill all 12 guest rooms. I did not want the inn anymore. Saying that aloud was harder than asking for the divorce. Daniel looked at me across the conference table. "You're walking away from it?" "I'm asking you to buy my interest." "With what money?" "Future revenue, structured payments. And if the inn can't make them?" "I retain my ownership percentage until it does." His attorney leaned forward, but Daniel raised a hand. "You'd rather be paid to leave than stay and build what we started?" "I don't want to spend the rest of my life proving I was there." He looked down at his wedding ring. He still wore it. I had stopped wearing mine, but carried the faint, pale line around my finger. The final agreement took 6 weeks. Daniel would make scheduled payments toward my share. Until the buyout was complete, major financial decisions still required both owners' approval. Existing marketing contracts purchased by Vale Hospitality remained mine, and the inn could use the work only with my written authorization. Daniel barely glanced at that section. He cared about the keys. On the day I moved out, he placed his house key on the kitchen island and took the brass room 7 key from its hook. "That belongs to the inn," he said. "It doesn't open anything." "You made it mean something?" "No, we did." He turned the wooden tag between his fingers, then set it down. "You keep it." I moved into a furnished apartment above a dentist's office. Every weekday at 7:30, the pipes rattled when somebody started the suction equipment downstairs. My dining table wobbled. The windows faced a parking garage. I slept better than I had in months. Daniel made the first buyout payment on time. The second came early, funded by another portion of Lenora's loan. His attorney sent a cheerful note suggesting we accelerate the ownership transfer. They set the reopening for a Saturday in April. My name disappeared from the invitation. Nina forwarded it to me with one line. "Thought you should see this." The front showed Daniel and Lenora standing beneath the Glasshouse sign. Lenora's caption called it a family restoration, brought to life by a mother and son team. At the bottom was Owen's logo. I called him. "They moved the reopening coverage up," he said. "Daniel told me the inn would handle the balance." "The contract isn't with the inn." "I know. That's why I haven't changed the client." "Did they send you a shot list?" He hesitated. "Lenora did." "Send it to me." My name appeared nowhere. Staff group. Mother and son at entrance. Founder portrait Daniel. Founder portrait Lenora. Ribbon cutting. Family legacy series. I approved Owen's attendance without approving the list. On Saturday morning, I put the room 7 key in my coat pocket and drove to the Glasshouse. Daniel saw me through the front door. He came outside and planted his hand against the frame. "Mara," he said, "don't do this here." I almost asked what he thought I was doing. Instead, I looked through the glass at the lobby. Owen was testing the light beneath the chandelier. Nina stood behind the front desk with a stack of welcome envelopes, and Luis was in the dining room arguing with a silver coffee urn. "I'm attending the reopening of a business I still own," I said. "You said you didn't want the inn." "I don't want to stay married to it. That isn't the same as pretending I was never here." Daniel glanced over his shoulder. "Today matters." "I know. Mom has people here who invested in the idea. She has friends here who enjoy free wine. Mara, what are you afraid I'm going to say?" He looked at me then. For months, I had wanted him to look directly at what he was doing. When he finally did, there was no relief in it. "That we did this to you," he said. The front door opened behind him. Lenora wore an ivory suit and a hammered gold necklace I recognized from her anniversary dinner. Her smile stayed in place until she saw me. "Owen," she called into the lobby. "Hold on, please." Then she stepped beside Daniel. "This is a private event. The public is arriving in 20 minutes. Invited guests. I'm an owner. For the moment." Daniel said, "Mom, no, she needs to understand that she cannot abandon this place, delay the opening, and then walk in when the work is done." I looked past her at Nina. Nina had gone very still behind the desk. "Did you tell the staff not to let me in?" Lenora turned toward Owen. "She's no longer family. We need the founders together before guests arrive." The words traveled beautifully in the lobby. That room had excellent acoustics. I knew because I had paid a consultant to solve the echo. Owen lowered his camera. Daniel could have corrected her. He could have said I was still an owner, or that I had written the original business plan, or simply that Lenora did not get to decide who counted as family for everyone else. He moved aside, but only far enough to close the door. "Mara, give us an hour." I felt the brass key against my palm inside my pocket. "All right," I said. His face showed immediate relief. I walked around the building to the terrace entrance, where Luis was propping open the door with a sack of potatoes. He looked at my coat and then toward the front drive. "Did the building move, or are we using the kitchen entrance for owners now?" "Apparently, I'm an ingredient. Try not to get invoiced." He took his shoulder off the door so I could pass. I stood near the dining room while Owen worked. Lenora arranged the morning exactly as she had arranged her call sheet. She and Daniel stood beneath the sign. She tilted her head against his shoulder and asked Owen whether the pose looked natural but historic. "Those goals may be fighting," he said. She did not laugh. Daniel posed behind the walnut desk with one hand on the reservation book. Lenora had him walk down the stairs twice, then again after she noticed a cleaning cart in the background. She took individual portraits beside the fireplace and a dozen photographs holding the ribbon scissors before there was any ribbon to cut. At one point, Nina crossed the lobby carrying welcome envelopes. Lenora waved her away. "Staff photographs are after the principal's shots." Nina looked at me. I gave the smallest shake of my head. "Not yet." Guests began arriving while Lenora was still directing the doorway series. Paulette came in with 2 enormous arrangements and kissed the air near Lenora's cheek. A regional tourism representative shook Daniel's hand. Near the fireplace stood Caroline Ames, the lending officer who had reviewed Lenora's loan documents and the inn's revenue projections. I had spoken with her twice during the buyout negotiations. She greeted me with a cautious nod. Lenora noticed. She caught Daniel by the elbow and guided him back under the sign. "Let's get the legacy photograph," she told Owen. "Just the 2 founders." Owen looked toward me. I let him ask the question with his eyes. Then Lenora positioned herself in the doorway, half a step in front of Daniel, and put one hand on the frame Daniel had blocked with his own body. "Coming home," she said. "That's the feeling." Daniel's expression shifted. Maybe he remembered the first weekend we toured the inn when the porch roof leaked down the back of his jacket. Maybe he remembered standing in the sunroom with rainwater around our shoes while we calculated whether wanting something badly could make its foundation less rotten. Or maybe he was simply tired of posing. Either way, he did not step away. I walked toward Owen. "Who booked you?" I asked. The lobby quieted in pieces. Nearby conversations thinned as people realized there was a conversation worth overhearing. Owen opened the contract on his tablet. He checked the client line, then the approval section. "You did," he said. "Vale Hospitality is the commissioning client. Your signature is the only client signature." Lenora kept her hand on the doorframe. "The Glasshouse is paying the balance." "That doesn't transfer the contract," Owen said. She gave him the patient smile she used when she planned to complain about someone later. "We can sign a new one right now." No, ma'am. I'm sure you'd rather be paid. I'm already booked today. By the inn. By Mara. Daniel stepped away from the doorway. Owen, can we talk privately? We can, I said, but it won't change the agreement. Lenora came into the lobby. This is absurd. We're standing in our property at our event, and she believes she owns the photographs. I own the commercial license, I said. You received the agreement with the rest of the marketing files. I did not. I sent it to Daniel. She turned on him. He rubbed the back of his neck. I thought it was a standard vendor contract. It is, Owen said. The client controls the shot list, and I need her approval before I release images for advertising or press. Caroline Ames took a folded program from the fireplace mantel. I watched her reread the paragraph calling Lenora and Daniel the Glasshouse's sole founders. Daniel noticed that too. Fine, he said. Mara, approve the list. No. One syllable. No raised voice. No speech. His eyes hardened. You came here planning this. I came here after you sent a photographer I hired a list that erased me. You don't even want to be in the pictures. That was never your decision to make. Lenora laughed, but there was no humor in it. So what now? You put yourself in the center of every photograph? No. I turned to Owen. Photograph the staff first. Individual portraits, then the group. After that, interiors, food, guest rooms, and the exterior details on the original list. No founder portraits. No mother and son series. You can't remove us from our own reopening, Daniel said. I'm removing you from my shoot. Lenora reached for her purse. I'll hire someone else. You should, I said, if you can find someone available before the ribbon cutting. Paulette lifted her phone. I can take perfectly good photographs. I'm sure you can, Owen said. I had to look down to hide my smile. Lenora saw it anyway. You find this amusing? No, I find it familiar. You arranged something without permission and assumed somebody else would pay for it. Her cheeks flushed. Daniel stepped between us. Enough. That word had always been his emergency exit. Enough meant the facts had become uncomfortable. Enough meant whichever woman loved him more should stop. This time, neither of us did. You knew she had the contract, Lenora said to him. I knew her company booked Owen. And you didn't change it? I didn't think I needed to. You told me the marketing transferred with the inn. The inn hasn't transferred, Caroline said. She had not raised her voice, but everyone heard her. Daniel faced her. The buyout is in progress. I understand. The program says the transfer is complete and identifies two founders. One of them is not an owner, and the other owner is standing by the dining room. Lenora's posture stiffened. My loan made this reopening possible. I'm aware of your loan. Then you're aware of my position. I'm becoming more aware by the minute. That ended the conversation more effectively than anything I could have said. Nina gathered the staff near the staircase. There were 11 of them. Front desk, housekeeping, kitchen, maintenance. A few looked nervous. Luis still wore his apron. Lenora pulled Daniel aside. Their voices stayed low at first. Then I heard her say, "You let her keep a leash around your neck." Daniel answered too quietly to catch. Owen arranged the staff beneath the chandelier. "Closer," he said. "You all work together. You can stand like you've met." Luis put one hand on Nina's shoulder. She elbowed him in the ribs. The housekeepers laughed. Owen took the picture at exactly that moment. It was the first honest expression anyone had photographed all morning. I did not stand with them. The staff deserved a picture that was not another argument about ownership. Owen moved through the inn, photographing the newel post we had stripped by hand, the dining room set for lunch, the blue glass lamps in the guest rooms, and the morning lights spreading across the sunroom tables. Lenora hired one of Paulette's friends for $200. He arrived after the ribbon cutting with a camera meant for real estate listings and spent 10 minutes asking where to plug in his flash. The reopening continued. People ate Luis's squash bisque and called it elegant. Nina checked in the first guests. The boiler held. The brass room numbers Daniel ordered caught the light beautifully, though the temporary ceramic ones had looked fine too. The inn did not need anyone's version of the story to open its doors. Near the end of the afternoon, Daniel found me alone in room 7. The room smelled of fresh paint and cedar. Lenora had dressed the bed with ivory sheets from somewhere else. They were too deep for the mattress and the fitted corners bunched under the quilt. Daniel closed the door. Caroline wants updated ownership disclosures and revised marketing materials before they finish reviewing Mom's loan extension. Good. She thinks we concealed the pending buyout. Did you? I sent the agreement. Then the problem is the program. He looked toward the window. Mom wrote it. You approved it. Yes. The words sat there without an excuse attached. He stepped closer. Approve 1 photograph. No. 1. Me under the sign. We need something for the tourism release tonight. You have the property images and staff photographs. They asked for ownership. Then tell them the truth. His jaw worked. You know how that looks. Yes. Mara, if the reopening coverage turns into a story about our divorce, I'm not speaking to the press. You don't have to. Refusing the photos says enough. You blocked the door. He looked down. From the hallway came the rattle of a housekeeping cart. Normal work moving around us. What do you want? He asked. Not what do you want me to say? It was the first time he had asked the right question. I want the next buyout payment made on schedule, without trying to accelerate the transfer using your mother's loan. I want every public reference to her as a founder corrected. I want staff credited in the reopening release. And I want my 2 remaining decanters returned. He nodded slowly. And the photo? If you do those things, I'll approve an accurate reopening package. Property, food, staff, ribbon cutting, no founder portrait. My own business, and I can't have a picture under the sign. You can have all the pictures you want. You cannot use the photographer I hired to help you rewrite who built it. His eyes moved to my coat pocket. You brought the key. I took it out. The wooden tag was smooth at the edges from years of handling. I almost left it on the front desk. Why didn't you? I wanted to know if I'd still give it back after today. Will you? Eventually. He sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the wrinkled sheet. I thought if I could get us open everything before it would feel worth it. To whom? He gave a tired smile. There you go. What? Making me answer the second question. You usually stop after the first. He rubbed the brass number on the nightstand, waiting to be attached to the door. Mom knew we were in trouble before I did. She kept saying you wanted control more than you wanted the inn. And you believed her. I believed whatever let me keep both of you working. The honesty was ugly, but it was honesty. You didn't keep me, I said. I know. He made the next payment 3 days later. The inn issued a corrected release naming Daniel and me as the original co-founders and Lenora as an opening lender and hospitality advisor. She hated the wording enough to send revisions 6 times. Nina used the first approved version. My decanters arrived wrapped in clean bar towels, delivered by Luis. One had a tiny chip at the base. He pointed it out before I could ask. I didn't do it, he said. But apparently that sentence is popular. The professional photographs went live the following week. The staff portrait became the inn's most shared image. Daniel used a phone picture of himself beneath the sign on his personal account. It was slightly crooked, and one of Paulette's orchids blocked the final E in Glasshouse. The buyout took 8 months. Daniel made every payment. The inn survived, although survival looked less cinematic than Lenora had expected. She stopped ordering anything after Daniel required purchase orders for all expenses. They argued about brunch service, holiday packages, and whether the lobby needed a second tree in December. Nina was promoted to operations manager and made both of them schedule meetings. On the morning the final transfer cleared, I placed the brass key in a padded envelope with no note. Then I changed my mind. I drove to the inn before opening and found Daniel on the front porch sweeping leaves. He leaned the broom against the railing when he saw me. I held out the key. He closed his hand around it. Still doesn't open anything. No? What am I supposed to do with it? That's finally not my job. He laughed once quietly, then his eyes filled, which made me look toward the sunroom. Through the glass, the morning light lay across the tables exactly as it had the first time we saw the place. Inside the lobby hung Owen's photograph of the staff. In the edge of the glass beside the doorway, my reflection was faint but visible, my empty hand resting at my side. Daniel stepped back from the entrance. This time, he did not block it. I walked past him, through the doorway, and out the kitchen side into the clear morning beyond the inn.